Welcome, everyone, into the glorious electronic circle of the Ascended Master's living presence. Today, we are going to take you and allow each and every one of you to pursue your own path, which is, as it were, like a path of immigration. For you are all desirous of immigrating into the realms of the Ascended Masters. You are desirous of entering into their visible and tangible presence. There are many aspects of this journey and this immigration that we would touch upon today. First and foremost, we would wish for each and every torchbearer of the temple, as well as all of those who are earnestly seeking to enter into the presence of God, that each and every one of you might be able to cultivate for yourself the ability in your heart to reach out and to have experiences in the presence of God. By those experiences, we mean that you would be able to touch the tangible presence of the Godhead, that you would have your own first-hand experiences with that living presence, have more and more giving and receiving with that presence, so that you had what in modern terms sometimes the word is used of feedback, that you would have the reinforcement in your own life experiences that, yes, there is that tangible reality of the God vibration, which my heart is in touch with. There is that presence of perfection and God reality. And there are those ones who have gone before me in the persons of the Ascended Masters, whom I count as my family, as my brothers and sisters, and whose personal ray I have come to recognize, the ones that I may count upon. As you begin to unravel these skeins of this tangible experience in your life, the Ascended Masters know that more and more you will be able to live the Ascended Master way of life. And for you, the realities of life as it is lived in this realm will become more and more dear and tangible to your conscious awareness. And you will be able to lay alongside of this outer world and its ways, this experience that you are having in the presence of the Godhead. And you'll be able to choose that consciousness for yourself. Many times, you have understandably been enamored with the glorious manifestation which one or more of the Ascended Masters are. Undoubtedly, each and every Ascended Master is unspeakably grand. To be in their presence for a period of time is like being left out of school as a child, when spring comes around, you have to be in class doing your ABCs, looking out the window as spring unrolls. Well, when you are inside the electronic circle, the closely held embrace of one or more of the ascended masters, you're like a child who's left out of school, and you're able to breathe in all of the promise and the glories and the majesties which that ascended master is. It is unquestionably a temptation to become so enraptured with the magnificence of any one of these ascended masters that if we could, we would demand that time stand still, that all of our own personal life, in a sense, come to a screeching halt. We build ourselves, like St. Peter wanted to do, we build ourselves a little hut and sit in that mountaintop of that glorious experience and let life go by in this world, down in the valleys. But we just abide in that glorious suspended animation of the wonderful expression of these ascended masters. If you did not have yourself a divine destiny, whereby you also are on the short path that leads homeward, whereby you will also become an ascended master, there may have been some argument for sustaining that. On the other hand, you should understand, and perhaps this will take a little bit of the pangs of lonesomeness from time to time, the wistfulness about one or more of the ascended masters. If you realize that in their supreme wisdom, they also know that if you were to be held within their bosom so very closely, permanently, on a constant basis, that you would rely upon the externalized presence that they are to the neglect of drawing forth your own individual mighty presence and realizing the consciousness of your own I am presence and bringing it forth into manifestation. But fear not, for there is a middle way. There is a balance of this wisdom that does provide for the ascended masters to sustain a rhythmic encouragement whereby you are laved and bathed in the concentric undulating rings of fire of their love and compassion, of the magnificence of their consciousness, so that you have that touchstone of their God reality as a magnet that draws you on and on and on and sustains you on your path and encourages you to have faith in their testimony, the witness that they provide to you, that you also have this bedrock of your own mighty I am presence to whom you may turn, and which it is your glorious opportunity for you to draw forth the magnificence of your own individual mighty I am presence. You yourself, I'm sure, can think of examples. For example, in our brothers and sisters who are part of the Christian faith, the overwhelming beauty and magnificence and utter compassion of the life stream of one ascended master, namely beloved Jesus, was so all-encompassing that it became the be-all and the end-all of that entire religion. So much so that those individuals, in their understandable adoration and love of Jesus, have neglected to pour forth any gratitude, love, and yes, identification with their own individual mighty I Am presence, so that they could allow that mighty presence to be where they are. The society of the Ascended Masters, the nationhood, if you will, of the Ascended Master realms, of the realms of the cosmic Christ, are accessible to each and every heart that is devoted to them. And it is for every one of you to guard the citadel of your own outer consciousness so that you may begin shifting over the center of gravity of your sense of selfhood, and more begin to enter into that glorious realm of beauty and magnificence which the Ascended Masters enjoy. As you do this, as you begin to work with first of all, with your heart, and through your heart's expression, you begin to harness your mind and your feelings, disciplining them so that they can be acting in conformity with the consciousness of your presence. More and more, you will have entree into the society of the Ascended Masters. And we collectively, as the unascended counterpart to the Ascended Masters, will be free to begin more and more to lower into this world, to build into this world the perfect ideal society, which we have coined the phrase, or it has been coined for us for such a very long time, as the dawning golden age. An age that is real, an age that has a future to it, that has momentum. For a little while, we would like to touch upon some of the elements of this process whereby you are going to immigrate into the realm of the Ascended Masters. One of the chief components of this is for you to understand that parts of you are already anchored in those realms, that there are vehicles of your own self-conscious awareness that have never descended into being all embroiled and amalgamated and invested in what is going on out here in this temporary experience life that we call the outer world. You have vehicles of consciousness that you may choose more and more to empower and to reunite with your outer thought and feeling world, so that as you rise in attunement in those vehicles, you will be already living and breathing and conducting a very vital, ongoing, fully developed expression of life. It's not going to be one that is devoid of any richness or beauty. You're not going to really give up anything of worth as you enter into that realm. One of the ways that beloved Jesus sought to teach this very teaching was in his parable of the wedding. And the end of that parable, where everyone was required to wear a white garment in order to be a part of that feast. And somehow or another, it appears as if someone had sought to take heaven by storm and project themselves into that wedding ceremony and society without the proper vestment of consciousness. And the moral of the story was that unless there is the ability to put on that vestment, to wear it permanently, the human race is left with the story of Adam and Eve, where they are expelled from this Edenic society and are obliged to live out in the outer world. Now let us move on to a number of the elements that are part of the awareness which each and every one of the Ascended Masters possess. These are characteristics of the nature of the one presence of the mighty I Am presence that are true for us regardless of how much we are out here in the outer world. They have been true for the adepts before their own ascension. They are things that we are free to embrace, that we are free to allow our consciousness to enter into, so that here and now we can actually begin the process of living our golden age Ascended Master way of life. First of all, one of the things that we fondly hope for each and every one of you is that as you begin through your heart the glorious blue pluming will of God, the golden pluming thinking consciousness of God, and the pink pluming love ray of the presence of God, as you put on those elements of consciousness and you rise into first the Christ mind or the Christ presence at the level of your own holy Christ presence, that you will begin to discover another whole world, another whole reality. And one of the things that is very powerful for us as Ascended Master students is as we come to realize that the teachings which the Ascended Masters have given us, especially as they relate to the nature of the presence of God, that these are not platitudes or otherworldly. These are not out of date. They are not inconsequential or irrelevant to all of the practical decisions and problem solving that have to go on in life, but that in fact, by understanding the nature of the presence of God, the true reality of the nature of the presence, and understanding the interplay that goes on between the great one universal presence of God and the individualization of that presence, which we are each one, that in the proper understanding of the way things are in reality in life, the so-called macrocosmic, microcosmic exchange, which is a two-way flow that goes on constantly, that as we understand that these laws that are operating self-evident at inner levels, that they are really true here and now in this outer world, despite the overlays of human misqualification, why then we are able to sustain ourselves and we are able to problem solve our way through the things that confront us without generating fresh new karmic debts that we are going to have to re-embody in order to pay off those karmic debts. So let us begin by understanding a few things about this universal reality of the glorious and presence of God. One of the first things that will strike your consciousness as you enter the Ascended Master octaves is that, in one sense, even though you are now in the Ascended Master octaves, even though you are now wearing your electronic body, the truth of the matter is that the Ascended Masters don't really go to church in the sense of going to some one temple somewhere, and there God Almighty, the Father principle of the Trinity, or anything such as that there will ever be a single incarnation of God the Father, or the Father, Mother, God, sitting on a throne somewhere, to whom all of the Ascended Masters pay homage and worship as such an incarnation. There is no such temple where you have that sense. Rather, what you do have is a sense of the all-pervasive presence everywhere in cosmic space, everywhere in eternity. You have a sense that every point of space is an altar where this presence of God is evident. And since everyone has a common experience there, every single Ascended Master, an angel, an Elohim, cosmic being, they all have that sense of this all-pervading one presence. They also have the sense that there is an ability to, even as Ascended Masters, to pour forth the boundless love of which they are now capable of giving to this one presence in the heart of all life. And likewise, to receive back from that one presence the impetus of the love of that presence to their heart. It might strike you as a little bit logically inconsistent for an Ascended Master to say, I sent love to my presence, to my mighty I am presence. I can certainly imagine somewhere that someone who wishes to attack the teachings will argue that this is logically inconsistent. For if the Ascended Masters themselves now are drawn up into the individuality of their presence, there's no one for them to love, because they are now themselves that presence. But that is so far from the profound and magnificent reality of life that is lived there by the Ascended Masters. And that is that not only do they still have their own glorious God flame, which they are free to love, but as real as this podium is, or the air or the water is to our senses, so tangible is this omnipresent oneness of the presence of the Godhead to each and every one of the Ascended Masters. And as that love exudes through cosmic space, wafts in as a perfume which each of the ascended masters feel as tangibly as anything, so their hearts cannot help but to send forth to that presence their own adoration and love and worship, symbolically, if you will, bending the knee before that absolute one, God the One, that they know and they love. In the end of one of the books of the Ascended Masters, there is a narration, the beginning of one of their council meetings, of beloved Chananda giving an invocation and pouring forth the full worshipful adoration of his heart to this one mighty presence. And the observation was made on that occasion that even the best of the Ascended Master students, much less all mankind, have no conception whatsoever of the boundless love and adoration and gratitude which the Ascended Masters pour forth constantly to the heart of the one mighty presence. I brought with me today one similar praise and adoration to the presence on the part of beloved Saint Germain, which carries his signature cadence, so telling in the glorious description and the way in which he describes it. And I thought I would share that with you. These examples, by the way, are examples that can begin to serve each and every one of you in good stead. Because while there will always be the necessity of you focusing your attention on the mighty I Am presence, the individualized ray that is the truth of your own identity, that is domiciled within the celestial temple of your electronic body, that is just the touchstone, that is the launching point of your consciousness. That is the vehicle that allows you, yourself, even now as unascended life streams, to enter into the all-pervading, palpable God reality of the one presence of life that is immanent in this earthly world, regardless of outer appearances to the contrary. And that is part of the great value in bringing forth the example which the Ascended Masters state. The Master said these words many years ago. Life is abundant here, now, and forever, wherever you may be. Life only needs to be tapped. May I say that I have walked and talked with the elder gods of the race. I have met with the grandest of interplanetary masters, cosmic beings, and angelic hosts. I have attended ceremonies in the grand hallways of the retreats, strolled the cosmic highways. In short, I have had the most wondrous experiences since my ascension, and with me still are the memories of all my earthly experiences prior to my ascension, but none of these, even the highest of them, none of them is to be compared to the experiences which I continue to have within the mind of the divine man-child. In other words, the experiences which is that inner communion of this ascended being with the one great presence that we know as the I am that I am, that is at the fountainhead of all reality. So I thought for a little while we would put your heart in touch with that glorious oneness. Above all else, we would call for you to be able to let go of the outer sense of a separated soul or a separated self. In order to actually experience what we are speaking about, you have to have a vehicle of consciousness yourself that is knit of the same substance and awareness. Fortunately, there is more than one such vehicle that is available to you, beginning with just a heartbeat and a breath away, that figure which is shown in the portrait of the presence, overshadowing the outer form, the figure of your own Christ mind or your own Christ presence. All just to have that mind working through you will begin to put you in direct connection so that you have a feedback and reinforcement to be in touch with that, some of these more sublime realities, which are not on the other side of the universe, but are right here in this very space where your body is today. One of the things that you will need to do if you are going to put on that vehicle of your Christ presence is allow your sense of self to thaw, to no longer have a sharp-edged separation, a point of delineation, where who you are and what you are is defined by your physical body, your name, your memories in this outer world is defined by the edge of the aura of your four lower bodies. In order to look at life through this Christ mind, it's going to be necessary for you to let go of that and to allow that Christ, which is not only individual, but also already at that level, beginning to be universal. It is part of the one cosmic Christ consciousness, part of this one interconnected golden nerve system of consciousness that we call the cosmic Christ and the Buddhic web of life. In addition to that vehicle, you have the spherical awareness of your own sense of selfhood in your causal body, and you have the awareness of your sense of self at the level of the presence, the mighty I am presence. These are the vehicles that can already, through your heart, begin to share with you the consciousness which they have preserved for your return back into that consciousness, so that those higher vehicles will envelop the outer consciousness. First, they will envelop the soul memories of all of your incarnations. Then they will envelop the constantly flowing stream of your conscious thought and your conscious mind. They will likewise envelop the whole tenor and color of your outlook on life that you know as feeling. If your feelings are withdrawn, depressed, fearful, tense, you can't enter into this macrocosmic, microcosmic flow. But if you will allow the overshadowing by your Christ presence, your feelings can participate in that expression. it would be very unwise to leave out the physical body, for it is also a part of your consciousness. And you have no awareness, or few have anyway, of just how much the physical consciousness affects the conscious awareness. The more pure and attenuated and accelerated the light is within the physical body, the more the whole flow of this awareness of the presence can flow into your world and out into the universe. The first thing we realize as we enter into this awareness of the Godhead is the fact that the presence of God is all-pervading, all-pervasive. To put it in terms that might have a little bit of resonance with you in a way that you might understand, imagine that the texture, that the body consciousness of the one universal presence was of such a fine nature that nothing of mortality, nothing of time and space or of this world was small enough to prevent the presence from moving in and out. You might need to work with that concept a little bit and meditate on it. But this presence is so refined and attenuated in its nature so that it is in, through, and around, over, under. It is all pervasive. In the East, the word for this second person of the Trinity is Vishnu, which means all pervader. So that is one of the first things that will come to you, is this sense that wherever your consciousness rests, and this means even where there are outer appearances that seem to give evidence to the contrary, that the presence of God is also there behind the outer appearance. It is everywhere, all pervasive. And we will keep coming back to that concept as we move on. One of the other aspects of this, that of course is one of the basic keystones in this whole understanding of the nature of the Godhead, is that the presence is absolutely unified and one. This is something that as you put on the garment of your Holy Christ self, and as you put on the garment of the electronic body, will no longer be a thesis. It will no longer be an argument. It will be the tangible reality that you experience. This oneness is so vast as to defy limitation of any sort whatsoever. And at the same time, it provides for an interconnectedness and a unification at the level of consciousness, at the level of awareness. Long ago, when our master of the Aquarian age, beloved Saint Germain, was in embodiment as Plato, he introduced in certain of the dialogues his own experiences in this exalted state of the nature of the presence. And he sought to translate into any kind of mortal language at all, anything that would convey the awareness that the presence of God has of all of the macrocosm. And granted, back then, they didn't have the kind of telescopes that tell us about universes and galaxies beyond our own local Milky Way. But nevertheless, they had this concept of the vastness of the cosmos, of the great starry macrocosm. And in some of these dialogues, he put it this way, that there was but one living being, And this was a coined proper name that was given to the creation, that all of the creation across the sun and the stars and the vastness of the cosmos, that all of this was the one living being itself, or as he also referred to it both then and as Proclus, the all-perfect one living being. When you are able to begin to participate in that, it will come as an immense relief to you, as a tremendous joy, a glorious sense of rejoicing, to see how behind the veil there is this, although you are not going to have a personification where all of God is going to be in one incarnated or ascended being per se, but to have the sense that despite the fact that this presence is universal, it is nevertheless one. It is unified. And lo and behold, it is not without mind. This one being, it's not like going up to the bottom of the monolith that is El Capitan out in Yosemite and having this inorganic monolith and trying to have a conversation with this monolith. This one presence astonishingly is aware, is conscious. In fact, one of the other ways in which it is described, and this is a term of art in the teachings of the Ascended Masters, that while there is the individualization of the mighty I Am presence, there is also that which is known as the great I Am. And this is the one living being itself. The one presence is also aware of its I-amity. It is aware. It is universal, but it is aware. And that means that it is aware of you. And the way that it is aware of you is that it has focused its awareness to a permanent point of individuality, which is, lo and behold, the individuality of that one presence as your own I Am presence. So it gets to have its cake and eat it too. The allness of the presence gets to be the allness of that presence, to be the all-seeing, unblinking eye of conscious awareness that is also focused and individual. So the Ascended Masters and you as well can have this sense that there is a God out there in the cosmos that is knowing and conscious and aware of you. That there is a reality to the presence of God. God is not a figment of any Old Testament prophet's imagination. God is the reality that stands as the bedrock foundation of all of creation. An unblinking, all-knowing, all-seeing, omnipresent awareness of its own I-amity in a universal sense. The other thing that will take your breath away about the nature of this one presence is the astonishing capacity for goodness, for beneficence, and for love. That this presence of God is an active force of love in the universe in a very personal, compassionate way. That this universal presence, for all of its vastness and magnificence and its great exaltation, is very engaged in the process of desiring to confer the best gifts of life upon every single part of creation. It is this presence which the ascended masters and cosmic beings emulate. Their service to this world and to other parts of life, they do that because they see that in the one presence, that this presence above all else is itself the utter givingness and outpouring of all that is meant by the concept of love. This love is literally the artesian well that is pressing out through every single part of space. Constantly, this love is pressing out. Sometimes these examples are very instructive, more instructive than otherwise. And even though we've used a few of them from time to time, they do bear repeating because of the impact that comes, the living record that you are able to tie into. And there is one, the Ascended Masters, Daniel Rayborn, who described his own experience upon transitioning so quickly from the unascended state into the ascended state. And he described that in one sense it was like being outside at high noon with the sun overhead and the vault of the sky all around, and being in a sense unaware or oblivious to all of the stars that were there that we see in the nighttime sky. And then in the twinkling of an eye, without the sun ever diminishing, all of a sudden, all of the stars of the macrocosm, all of the stars came out of the blueness of the sky and shone with their intensity. And along with that sense, as he was rising into and being drawn into his own body temple of the electronic body, he noticed something that he had not seen before. And it seemed as if no matter where his consciousness rested, every point of space was a pore, which was exuding into space the love of God, which he had up to that moment been oblivious to. So palpable and so sharp was the contrast that he even called it to the attention of those who were greeting him in the ascended state, pointing out to them, do you notice what's happening around us here? And that is, all of a sudden, all of this love is just washing in from everywhere. This love of the God presence. It hadn't been there before, and now it's coming into manifestation. And so he learned his first lesson as an ascended master, that in fact, it wasn't that this love had just then, for the first time, dawned into life and into creation, but at long last, his own consciousness had been elevated to the pitch of perfection and sensitivity to where he was able to tie in and sense that love that had always been present, and that is present wherever you drag your body around on the face of the earth, whether you, as David said in the Psalms, whether you descend into the depths of hell or go into the heights of heaven or into the mountains or into the desert places, wherever you go, there you find the presence of the living God. And so it is through all eternity that this ineffable love is forever wafting through space, perfuming space with all of the glorious, magnificent, etheric fragrances that so electrify the consciousness and remind it of its origins in the heart of the presence. So this allows the consciousness of the individual to enter into the most sublime of all rituals, and that is communion. Even as an ascended master, they are free to enter into communion, not only fellowship with one another, or those above them in the hierarchy, or parts of life below them in the hierarchy, but first and foremost, a giving of themselves to this one great presence, and a receiving and the comfort of knowing that the one great presence accepts their love and returns its love to each one of them as ascended masters. There is this giving and receiving of that love that goes on perpetually in the ascended master octaves. And it is that fire at the core, at inner levels, that is the nuclear furnace, if you will, that fuels all of the rest of the outer realms of creation. Another part of this sense is as soon as this love begins to move out of this white fire core of the one, as soon as it begins its journey through life, we recognize that journey as the whole vast array and variations on the theme of life. For life, with all of its eternal youth and vitality and optimism and promise and victory, life is the river of the outpouring of love, transferring what love has to every other part of creation. So immediately, we as soon as love starts moving, we know it as the river of life. And as soon as life starts to radiate forth, we know it as an all-pervading, absolute light that is conscious. This is not just typical light, whether it's artificially formed by human mechanism or even mere sunlight. But this light, spelled capital L-I-G-H-T, all caps, that light is the light of consciousness that has intelligence and life within it. It is the universal presence expressing as the dove of the Holy Spirit of light, which organizes, orchestrates, balances, arranges, and keeps order throughout the length and breadth of all of creation. It is the hand of that presence expressing as this absolute expression of light. Another thing that you cannot help, another aspect of this that cannot be escaped in any way, shape, or form, along with the awareness of consciousness, there is this astonishing capacity of the infinite one presence to think, to cognize, to have intelligence. What a wonderful word is that word intelligence. It's entirely different from intellect. It's not talking about a logical thing that is built up out of calling cards or some other little superstructure of outer logic and intellect. But this is the shining of the Mercury diamond shining mind of God that is its own universal intelligence, thinking, envisioning, creating, going on, giving forth from its own awakened bosom ideas and thoughts of perfection that are the patterns which are caught by all of the hierarchy, all individualized beings. They all are enamored with these thoughts that come forth from the universal presence. And various ones say, I like that thought. Others say, I like that thought. And everybody has their own pet thoughts of the infinite mind that just become their very reason for living. And they are content to devote themselves to seeing how this pattern in the mind of God can be brought forth and manifested in various ways through creation. Another aspect of all of this is to realize that, lo and behold, this one great presence is also possessed of its own, for want of a better term, body consciousness. Body consciousness, there is an ideal of body consciousness. There have been perversions of it. There have been ignorant human interpretations, but there's also a divine body consciousness. And that is where all of the higher realms of expression actually condense and become a manifestation and an externalization of that which is at the innermost levels. And even so, lo and behold, the one presence has its own universal body consciousness. And this term, which we have elected to define, or Saint Germain has chosen for the Western world to symbolize one quanta of that body consciousness, is the term electron. That is not as it is used in the scientific community by any means. In the East, they have a more universal term, anu, which really refers to this one quanta of the body consciousness of the I Am Presence, which is the great essence, the great universal sea of God's consciousness, which is embodied in that elemental, or that universal essence, rather, of the one substance and the one essence. Now, many times students have made the mistake of thinking that somehow or another they could look at this body consciousness of the universal presence, universal substance, look at it under a hypothetical microscope and isolate individual quanta and treat them as if they were somehow either mechanical building blocks or that somehow or another they were separate and apart entities. And that is an unfortunate error, because you deprive yourself of the greater wave of consciousness which God has at that level of the one essence and of the one substance of its own being, the one bread of life, the one supreme ingredient. One size fits all. No matter what it is that you need out of life, it is readily fashioned out of this one essence of the Godhead. Anything and everything can be drawn forth out of it. A whole range of phenomenon can be drawn out of it, all the way from intelligence, through various forms of energy, through various forms of life experiences, and if the convenience be suited, it can even be materialized either in this world or in inner levels, can be materialized, and more express this body consciousness by taking on a specific form for a period of time. but it need not have a specific form. To have this sense that this is my body, this is my universal awareness that I pour forth to every single part of life for life to be an expression of. All of these things are the moment-to-moment gnosis of your own mighty I Am presence. For your presence, these are not some Mount Everest that you aspire to someday. For your presence, these are the world, the society that your presence lives in, that the ascended masters live in. And it is for you to begin to bring that world and make this outer world and that world, instead of being mutually exclusive or a duality, to bring those two worlds into a superimposed overshadowing or oneness, to where they really are all a seamless continuity or continuum of expression that goes through all of these things. Another aspect of this, one of the greatest, one that you will be plumbing the depths of this one aspect of God consciousness. In great joy, you'll be reveling in it for who knows how many millions of years after your ascensions, without ever tiring, ever getting bored. And that is the supreme goodness of the presence. The presence is the one, and the presence is the good. And there is more to that than you can possibly begin to evaluate. These are not mere adjectives. These are not mere descriptors in a third-party sense. These are proper names for some of the most fundamental and all-pervasive expressions of the Godhead. This concept of the good. And you will at least now begin to realize for yourself and for all of life that it is this good, which the presence wills for every single part of life here below. And that out of the reality of the presence and out of nature, everything that God has ever orchestrated for the mankind of this earth or for any world anywhere is the good. Saint Germain actually uses the word vicious to describe any intellectual argument that would ascribe to the Godhead anything less than the good intent, the good patterns, and the perfection of that presence. What we have here in this world is a special case, thanks to the warp of millions of years of misqualification of human thought and feeling that have wound themselves so indelibly into the fabric of nature, which would otherwise have produced only the good for all creatures and all of creation and all of our experience. But underneath all of that overlay, that artificial overlay of human misqualification, there is the pressure of the good. And I will only say this much about that one subject. In some mysterious and yet sublimely magnificent way, everything that has ever happened ever, or ever has been produced by any great yuga, any part of life, any individualization of the Godhead ever in all eternity, it's all found its way back to the one. None of it has ever been lost. It is all still there, just as everything you personally have ever done is in your causal body. Everything the One has ever done or is doing or will do, because past, present, and future are all part of the now. All of it is in the good. And it is there with an immense pressure to burst forth like the seeds in springtime and to bring it forth and blossom once again. All of the momentum is there. All of the design is there. All of the patterns are there. All of the sweetness is there. All of the intent is there. That's where the will of God comes from, that is good. It's in the good. The will of God is good because that is the nature of the presence, that the will should be good. So all of that will is there. And it is, it's all run up. It's all ascended. It's all gone back to this great, great, great silence, this great, great, great central sun. It's all there pregnant with the good. And the whole drama of life and of creation is to give some partial expression to that good which God is, and to bring it forth into manifestation in this life. As you begin to tie into these, another aspect that will come to you, which will be such an immense comfort to your own outer awareness, is that you will register the powerful reality of God, the tangible, bedrock, indisputable reality that this is the nature of God, this is the nature of good, this is the nature of reality. Despite all of the world's sophisticated derision of those who believe in such things, it will have no effect on your consciousness when you have registered this universal presence. And you will more and more be able to look beyond the outer appearances, to be stressed out or fearful of them. You will be able to look a little bit more dispassionately on where you are at this moment on your path, where compared to where you want to be, what you have to do with your time compared to what you want to do with your time. You will know that you are on this inexorable destiny that the presence has orchestrated for your individual life stream as well as for every other part of life. And you will be able to be buoyed up and carried along by the ascending spiral of that divine intent and that reality, and able to bring it forth for every single part of life. We could go on and on about all of these things. I think that the task which the Ascended Master students have is to bring a relevancy of this application of cosmic law to more and more amongst mankind. And somehow or another, with all of our prayers for world conditions, we need to be praying for the hearts of the race of mankind to be hungry for the living presence, for there to be something within them that wants God, something within them that wants to go home to the heart of the presence, something within them that is not satisfied with the outer husks of what the world has to offer. In some ways, in earlier times, when men and women lived closer to the earth in rural areas, they were closer to the God of nature at least. In earlier times, where there weren't governments and technologies and all of the labor-saving devices of the modern world, people had less of the arm of the flesh to rely upon, and they were obliged to at least turn to God for help. Now, so many people don't feel that they need God's help anymore. They've got the latest gadgetry. They've got the monetary system. They've got plenty of things for entertainment. They've got what they consider to be freedom and license. And the thing that we need to call on is for those who are not satisfied with life, are not satisfied even with their understanding of the nature of God, not satisfied with how close or how far they are from being in the presence, not satisfied not to have this hunger for the reality of this presence fed by the meat of the truth of cosmic law. If we can, as a torchbearer ecclesia, find those individuals and break the bread of this living presence so that their hearts are fed, that the strain and the burden is lifted off of them, and they can see that in reality, although they are surfeited with the world's goods, with a very busy 21st century pace of life, many distractions and all of these things, that there is a part of life that is still passing them by, a much more glorious part. This is our joyous mantle of opportunity and responsibility to continue to herald and to sing the praises of this glorious realization of the nature of the one presence. I hope that all of you will not go too many days without giving the one decree. For whether you realize it or not, as you give this call, you are building a golden ladder of your own consciousness. You are massaging your mind body, massaging your feelings. You are moving atrophied mental limbs that have been frozen into inactivity for a long time. And you are preparing your thought and feeling world to be in agreement with what your heart knows to be true. The one supreme, all-pervading presence of light and life, everywhere Christos, everywhere changeless, dazzling, all-powerful, and so on and so forth. We've touched upon certain of the elements of that one universal presence that are touched in the one decree. Many, many more of them have a profound meaning that we've not had an opportunity to really discuss today. We'll have to wait for another opportunity when we can go into them. But in the meantime, every one of you can take up this call and affirm I am each of those qualities. And they, as you give that affirmation, a ray from your own electronic body, which is a discernible ray, will flow down, it will fire your crown, it will shine forth from the third eye, it will blossom forth from the threefold flame, and it will build into your mind and feelings more threads of contact with your own presence's awareness of all of these aspects of its nature. May we stand and give the golden river, following the invocation. Mighty I Am Presence in the heart of the great central sun. Beloved Alpha and Omega, beloved Nameless One, beloved Krishna and Sophia, beloved Helios and Vesta, beloved Lord Gautama, Lord Maitreya, beloved Jesus and Kuthumi, beloved great Manus of the root races, and all who serve the dispensation of the helicon of the glorious golden river. Dip down and direct your sublime attention earthward now. Find those precious heart flames in embodiment and preparing to re-embody, worthy of holding on to the filament of the Christ consciousness embodied in the helicon unfed flame. May this golden river, that is so very much the predominant reality in the realm of the cosmic Christ of Lord Maitreya, may it insinuate its way throughout the warp and woof of the mental world, of the emotional world, of the etheric double portion of the physical body. By the power of the great Manus of the root races, beloved Lord, God and Goddess Meru, the great divine director, Himalaya and Vivasvata, weave that golden river into a golden chainmail of protection over the chakras, seal off wherever possible all of those incursions of the psychic and the astral realms, bring into their place the radiance of the cosmic Christ of the one mind as the expression of the one universal light and life of the one mighty I Am presence. Imbue this company of torchbearers with the sense of kingdom building, of raising up the temple of the mighty presence far and wide across the face of the earth, that we are engaged in a time of construction, of constructivity, when all around seems to be falling down, that we are raising up more and more focuses of this golden river by our cooperation with the Ascended Masters, that we shall have the impetus of beloved mighty victory and his resolute God determination and that of the Mahachohan and the great Chohans of the rays, that there shall come forth this dawning golden age of Saint Germain and of the Ascended Master way of life that will rise and pulsate more and more and more across the world. We call to beloved Hera Sunamara, Chamuel and Charity, Zarathustra, again Lord Krishna and Lord Maitreya, to all who serve the ruby ray of Nada, to blaze forth the whirlwind action of that ruby ray through all of the perversions of the seven rays, through all of the aspects of the modern culture and civilization. Let them be caught up in that whirlwind action of the ruby ray. May all of those ties to discord and misapplication of the purities of the light be caught up now and fed directly into the descending stream of the glorious helicon, and flow forth once again to bring forth here upon this earth the glorious civilization of the sons and daughters of God walking the earth in the dignity and the authority of the mantle of their own mighty presence, individualized, which each one is. We thank you, and to this end do we decree.